Getting the right stringed instrument for your child depends on the size and the quality of the instrument. School districts with an orchestra program commonly start students in the 4th or 5th grade, but the Suzuki method has made it popular to start even earlier. It's very important for children to play on the correct sized instrument according to height and arm length for both ease of playing and the development of proper technique. Measuring your child for the right size depends on the instrument. Violins, cellos, and basses are made in 8 different sizes, with 4/4 or full size being largest and 1/16 being the smallest. For violin, start with your child's left arm fully extended, like airplane arms. A measurement should be taken from the neck to the middle of the palm. If your child measures between 14 and 16 inches, a 1/16 size violin is needed. Between 16 and 18 inches, a 1/8 size is best. And between 18 and 20 inches, a quarter size violin is needed. When a child measures between 20 and 22 inches from neck to palm, a half-size violin is best, while those measuring between 22 and 24 inches would be most comfortable on a 3/4 size violin. If your child is bordering on the neck size, consider the length of his or her fingers. In general, a kindergartner will use a 1/8 size violin, whereas a 5th grader will probably need a 3/4 violin. Violas are measured a little differently. Start with airplane arms again, but measure from the neck to the base of the fingers. This is a little longer measurement than the recommended method for sizing the violin. Since the low C string on viola won't sound good on anything smaller than what would be a 3/4 violin, they don't come in as many sizes. Violas are described on the length of the instrument body because they get bigger than violins. If your child's arm measurement is 22 to 23 inches, a 12 or 13 inch junior viola is best. An arm measurement between 23 and 25 inches warrants a 14-inch intermediate viola, which is as big as a full-size violin. Once the arm grows past 25 inches, viola players like to stretch into as big a viola as possible to maximize its deep tone. Usually, a student is in middle school before being ready for a 15-inch viola, and then plays on a 16-inch as an adult. When it comes to cello, there are several sizing issues to consider. First, the height of the player. Second, the length of the entire arm, from the shoulder socket to the very tip of the middle finger. Third, and most importantly, the size of the left hand, specifically the distance between the tip of the index finger and the tip of the pinky. Until your child can measure 3 inches from pointer to pinky, you should rent or buy a 1/8 size cello. A quarter size cello is good until they measure 4 inches across, and then a half size is best. Most 5th grade students starting in a school orchestra program start with a 3/4 size cello, but are in high school before they are ready for a full size. Bass students, until around age 9, will need a 1/8 size string bass. Starting in the 4th grade, you can use the cello sizing chart as a reference, but bring each size one step smaller. For example, a student who is ready for a half-size cello would be more comfortable on a quarter-size bass. Your average middle school student would prefer a half-size bass, while high school students would want a 3/4. It is extremely unusual for students, even in college, to use a full-size bass as it is 7 feet tall. Now, parents have to make a choice, rent or buy. Most music teachers recommend that you rent for several reasons. It makes sense to rent a fractional-sized instrument and trade up to larger sizes as needed rather than buying 7 different instruments over time. Rental programs frequently offer a protection plan in case the instrument is dropped, stolen, or needs repair. Parents want to wait and see if their child will take to the instrument. Rental programs use higher quality instruments, and many music stores offer rent-to-own programs. Even with rent-to-own programs, you are working toward buying a new instrument at the manufacturer's retail price. Some families decide to save money in the long run by just purchasing up front. The first instinct is to look for the good deal online. There are many shiny, violin-shaped objects out there with bad strings, poor setup, painted-on features, and blunt bridges. By simply looking at the online image of a violin, you can't tell much about it. Buying a good, used instrument that you can touch and hear is the better investment. There are some things that you can look for when buying a used string instrument. The initial step is to check the outside for the most costly repairs or problems that would make the instrument unplayable. First, look at the peg box. Peg box cracks are expensive to repair and don't always remain stable. The peg should not stick out the other end too far and shouldn't creak when turned. Next, check for cracks in the top and back. Avoid instruments with cracks around the bridge feet and the sound post area, which is a little behind the bridge. Small cracks extending from the F-holes may not be too much of a problem. Larger cracks may be okay if they are stable, even if the repair is unsightly. Try pushing gently on the cracks to see if they move. If the seams are open, they will need to be resealed. It's a more expensive repair when the ribs are sticking out further than the edges. Now check the edges and corners for damage. The black lines that go around the edge of the instrument are not just for looks. This purfling that runs around the edges is designed to keep damage from progressing to more critical areas of the instrument. But if corners or purfling are missing, it's more serious. Cheap instruments have the purfling painted on, and it will look and feel too even. Neck problems can also be a disqualifier. Look for damage around the area where the neck meets the body. The neck also has to be straight. If the neck is crooked, the strings will pull the bridge noticeably closer to one side or the other. The fingerboard is black because it should be made of the naturally dark ebony, which is very hard and best for stringed instruments. If you look under the fingerboard where the neck meets the body of the instrument, you should not see any brown spots. If you do, that's an indicator that it's made of a softer wood and it has been painted black. While you are looking down the fingerboard, aim it toward the light and check to see if it looks like a washboard. If it does, it needs to be planed or replaced. Also check the button, that small semicircle of wood that covers the neck where it meets the body. Make sure that it's all intact and not broken. If the button has been broken, there may be underlying problems if it wasn't properly repaired. Avoid dowels, which are wood posts inserted into the body. That's a common repair, but it's expensive if you have to take it apart and re-repair it. If the bridge and strings are still on the instrument, they can tell you a lot. The first clue is if the bridge has been cut way down near the heart. The bridge that looks unusually short has probably been cut down in response to a neck that is too low or slowly sinking. To get a better idea of what's going on, sight down the fingerboard from the scroll. Imagine a straight edge lying on the fingerboard. If it comes out through the heart, that's a deal breaker. You should not be able to see the heart. If you can, it may need a new neck, an expensive repair. Consider the varnish. If you are investing in a high-end instrument, then varnish should look hand-rubbed in. Varnish damage, however, will usually not hurt the tone. Don't judge a book by its cover. Colored violins are pretty to look at, but are commonly very low quality. Ideally, you can play the instrument and test its sound quality. The tone will be affected if the sound post has fallen down or is missing. Look inside the F hole and you should see what looks like a dowel rod from the foot of the bridge to the back of the instrument. You will also notice a paper label on the inside which tells you about the maker. This label will probably have the year it was made, the country of origin, and the company or maker of the instrument. It may also have two labels because the instrument setup may be done by another shop than its body. It is very common for the label to have the name of famous violin maker Stradivarius in it. Typically, it says copy of Stradivarius because the builder or manufacturer used the same dimensions and designs as Stradivarius. If it has no label, that could mean one of two things. It's an old instrument from Europe or a cheap new instrument that no one wants to put their name on. MENC, the National Association for Music Education, recommends that all beginning string instruments should have 4 fine tuners on the instrument, with the exception of bass. MENC is also the organization that standardized violin sizing, so try to find out if the violin you are looking at does meet MENC specifications. Don't forget about the bow. Brazil wood and fiberglass bows are good for beginning students. Pernambuco wood bows are matched with higher-end instruments for advanced players. A new kind of bow on the market, made of carbon fiber, is very popular because it resonates and responds like wood, but has the durability of fiberglass. The stick also resists warping, which you will need to watch out for in older wood bows. Any bow, wood or fiberglass, can be rehaired, but it runs around $60 nowadays. A quality instrument the right size for your child will sound nice and be easier to play and tune. This will encourage them to practice on a regular basis so you get the most out of your investment, and most importantly, they get the most enjoyment out of the music.